I should have left the second I saw the freezer door swing open by itself. It was 2:47 a.m. I remember that because I looked at my phone right before clocking out. I work night shift stocking shelves at a Walmart in rural Indiana, dead zone, nothing around for miles. The kind of place where silence doesn't feel peaceful, it feels loaded. That night, I stayed late to finish zoning aisle 19, frozen foods. Most of the night crew had already left. Just me and an old janitor named Clyde were left, and he was somewhere back near electronics with his headphones on, humming old Johnny Cash songs. That man couldn't hear a nuke go off next to him. I was alone. Or at least, I thought I was. I was facing the shelves, lining up some lean cuisines, when I heard the unmistakable click of one of the freezer doors unlatching behind me. I turned. The door to the bottom row of freezers was wide open, fog spilling out across the floor like dry ice. No one was there. At first, I thought maybe I hadn't shut it right earlier. But then, it happened again. Click. Another door. 2 sections down. Still no one there. I walked toward it, slowly, telling myself it was some kind of mechanical error. But as I got closer, I noticed something on the floor. Smudges. Not quite footprints, more like streaks. Long, dark streaks across the polished tile, like something had been dragged. And they weren't there 5 minutes ago. I bent down to look closer, and that's when the motion sensor lights flickered above me, just once, like a pulse. I stood up fast and turned back to the freezer. The glass was fogged, but through it, I saw something move. Not a person. Not a shape I could explain. It ducked out of sight before I could register it. I yanked the freezer door open, empty. Completely empty. Not even frozen dinners. Just frost and that thick, musty cold that somehow smelled wrong. And then my radio crackled. Back, don't, go to, 19, it was Clyde. But the transmission was shredded, like something was interfering. My heart was thudding so hard it felt like it was inside my throat. I turned to head toward the back to find him, but the lights cut out completely, except for the frozen aisle. That section stayed lit. Bright. Humming. Almost like it wanted me to stay. And then I heard breathing. Not mine. Not close. But heavy. Wet. Somewhere between the freezers. I wasn't alone anymore. I froze. Not like a figure of speech, I literally couldn't move. That breathing, it had this rhythm to it. Like it was dragging something in and out of lungs that weren't built right. Wet and gurgling, just loud enough to let me know, it knew I was listening. I backed away, slow, toward the end of the aisle. My shoes squeaked on the floor, loud enough to make me wince. Whatever it was, it stopped breathing. Silence. Then came the sound that still haunts me, tapping. 3 sharp taps. On the inside of the freezer glass. I whipped around. Nothing. Just frozen meals and fogged up doors. But I swear to you, one of those doors had handprints on the inside, 5 long, thin smears on the fogged surface. Too long to be human. Like spider legs. Or antlers. That's when I saw Clyde. Or I thought it was Clyde. He was standing at the far end of the aisle, facing away from me. His mop lying on the floor. Still. Too still. I called out. Clyde. He didn't move. I took a step forward. Hey, man, we gotta get out of here, something's wrong. He turned. And his face. It wasn't right. His eyes were wide, like too wide, bulging out like someone had stretched his skin from behind. And his mouth, Jesus. His mouth was open, like he was trying to scream, but no sound came out. Blood trickled from his nose. Then, fast as hell, he dropped. Straight down like a puppet with the strings cut. I ran. I didn't care where. Just away from whatever the hell that was. I booked it past garden, toys, automotive. The lights kept flickering overhead, each section stuttering as I passed under it. I swear I could hear something crawling behind me. Something fast, with too many legs. I ducked into the break room and slammed the door shut behind me. Locked it. Backed into the corner, gasping, praying. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dig my phone out. No service. Of course. And then I heard it again, that breathing. Just outside the door now. Low. Deep. Almost like it was sniffing for me. Then, it whispered. Right through the door. Found you. I couldn't breathe. I pressed myself against the far wall of the break room, eyes locked on the door like I could hold it shut with my stare alone. My phone was dead silent, no bars, no Wi-Fi. The emergency call button might as well have been a game icon. Then, the breathing stopped. No footsteps. No shuffling. Just, nothing. And somehow that was worse. I waited. 10 minutes. Maybe 20. I don't know, time doesn't work right when you're that deep in fear. Eventually, I crept to the door and pressed my ear against it. Silence. I cracked the door open. The hallway outside was empty. Lights buzzing, but no flicker. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Clyde was gone. I should have run straight out the front door, but something in me, maybe stupid, maybe instinct, said don't. I couldn't leave without knowing what I saw. Or what took Clyde. I know how that sounds, but if you'd seen his face. You'd want answers, too. I remembered something weird from earlier in the shift. The manager, Jake, had been in a panic about some pallets marked, "Do not unload, stockroom 9." There is no stockroom 9. The back rooms only go up to 8. Curiosity turned to obsession. I snuck through the store's back corridor, past the loading dock, to the old maintenance wing nobody uses. There, tucked behind a stack of busted soda machines, was a steel door. No sign. Just a keypad lock and a faint humming sound coming from behind it. The keypad was covered in dust, except for 4 buttons that were clean, 1, 9, 8, and 7, I punched in 1987, mostly guessing. Click. The lock disengaged. The air behind that door was wrong. It hit me like walking into a freezer wrapped in static. My hair stood up. Every bone in my body told me to turn around. But I didn't. Inside, there was a long hallway with flickering strip lights and shelves on both sides, filled with old Walmart merchandise, stuff from decades ago. CRT TVs, cassette tapes. Expired cans. Dolls. Hundreds of them. All facing the same direction, toward the back. The humming got louder the deeper I went. Then I saw it. A freezer unit, just like the ones in aisle 19, except this one was massive. And built into the wall. Like it had been installed before the rest of the building. Like the store had been built around it. Carved into the top, above the glass doors, were the words, "Do not open while the store is occupied." The doors were fogged. Frost spread out like veins across the glass. And from inside, something knocked. 3 times. Same as before. Then, it answered me. "Still watching you." I stepped back from the freezer, heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood in my ears. That voice, it wasn't just speaking. It was inside. Not in my head, exactly. But not in the air either. It sounded like it came from under my skin. I reached for my phone. Still no signal. But the camera worked. I lifted it to take a photo of the freezer, and that's when I saw it. Through the screen, not with my eyes, I could see a face behind the glass. No, Not a face. A shape. Tall, thin, pressed against the other side like it was waiting. Like it knew I was there. Its hands were wrong. Too many fingers. Bent backwards. Joints in the middle of the palm. One of them slowly curled, then tapped on the glass. Tap. 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 I nearly dropped the phone. Suddenly, all the lights in the hallway died, everything went pitch black except for the freezer, glowing faint blue. A pulse of icy fog rolled out across the floor like a living thing. Then came the whispers. Not from one voice. Dozens. All layered. Like a crowd of people trying to talk through each other. Too fast. Too many. Chanting something I couldn't understand. And they were getting louder. I turned to run, but something grabbed my ankle. Hard. I looked down. One of the old dolls had fallen from the shelf. Its glass eyes were fixed on me, mouth slightly open. And wrapped around my leg, was a small, human-looking handprint. In frost. I kicked free and bolted. The hallway behind me had changed. The shelves were taller. The exit was further away than it should have been. Like the building was shifting, breathing around me. I heard footsteps, big, wet slaps against concrete, chasing me through the dark. I didn't look back. I found the steel door again, slammed it shut behind me, and staggered back into the normal stockroom like I'd just crossed out of a nightmare. Except. Something followed me. Not physically. But the air felt different now. Heavier. Like something had stepped into me. Or woken up because of me. I made it to the front of the store. The sliding doors opened like normal. Outside, the parking lot was empty. Quiet. Clean. Like nothing had ever happened. I got in my car and drove. Didn't even clock out. Thought it was over. Until I got home. And in the middle of my kitchen table, was a Walmart receipt. No date. No total. Just one item listed, "Thank you for unlocking the door." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with every light on, clutching a baseball bat like it would actually help. The Walmart receipt was still on the table. I tried to tear it up, but the paper didn't rip. Not like normal. It bent. Folded. Crumpled. But wouldn't tear. And the ink? It bled. Like veins under skin. Around 4:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it until it stopped. Then it buzzed again. And again. I picked up on the sixth call. Didn't say anything. On the other end, was breathing. Then the same layered voices from the freezer whispered something that still makes my spine curl, "Discontinued items never leave." Click. I threw my phone across the room. The next day, I tried calling Walmart corporate. Tried emailing. Even tried Reddit. No one answered. My emails bounced back. The Reddit post got removed within seconds, flagged for disinformation. But the scariest part? The store wasn't on Google Maps anymore. No listing. No reviews. No address. I drove back out there, thinking maybe I'd gone crazy. But the parking lot was empty. Grass growing through the cracks. Windows boarded up like it had been abandoned for years. But it wasn't. I walked up to the front entrance. The automatic doors still worked, they slid open without a sound. Inside, the lights were on. Shelves were fully stocked. And the intercom was playing that soft, slow, cheery Walmart music, but slowed down. Like it was playing underwater. I yelled out. "Hello." No answer. Except. The intercom cut out. And then a voice, not the music, whispered through the speakers, "Return to aisle 19." I ran. I know how dumb that sounds. But part of me felt like I had to go back. Like something was unfinished. Or maybe, like I'd left something open. When I reached the frozen section, everything looked normal. No fog. No busted lights. Just frozen pizzas, burritos, TV dinners. Same as always. And right there, leaning against the freezer door, was Clyde's mop. No blood. No body. But scrawled across the frosted glass, in reverse, from the inside, were the words, "You let it out." The second I saw that writing on the freezer glass, "You let it out," my legs locked up. My mouth went dry. It was like those words weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be absorbed. Something in my chest felt tight, like those letters had wrapped themselves around my lungs. I backed away slowly. Every instinct screamed run, but it felt like the air itself was pressing in on me, like the store knew I was trying to leave. As if it didn't want me anymore, it just wanted to keep me. I turned to bolt and slammed straight into someone. I screamed. Flinched. But when I looked up, it was Jake, the manager. Or, what used to be Jake. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Eyes sunken, lips pale, and arms trembling like he'd been holding back a panic attack since the Cold War. He grabbed my shirt and hissed through clenched teeth, "Why did you open the door?" I didn't know what it was, I thought. He shook me. Hard. That wasn't a freezer. That was a seal. That thing inside, it's not a thing. It's a filter. It keeps the rest out. I stared at him, not understanding. The rest of what? Jake glanced around, eyes darting up to the ceiling like he expected it to crack open. Then he leaned in close, whispered, "There's more than one." Before I could respond, the lights above us exploded, one after the other, down the aisle, like dominoes. Glass rained down. Somewhere behind us, something let out a sound that wasn't a growl, more like a deep, glitched laugh. Jake shoved me. "Go. Loading dock, now." We sprinted through the back corridors, shelves rattling as if something massive was moving through the walls. The motion sensors kept triggering after we passed them. Like something else was following. We got to the back room. The emergency exit was padlocked shut. Jake pulled out a ring of keys, hands shaking so bad he dropped them. I knelt to help, and that's when I noticed the floor. Wet. Freezing cold. And underneath the spreading frost. Footprints. But not human ones. They were too long. Three-toed. And deep, like something with weight had just walked through. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back on. Jake screamed. When I turned, he was gone. No noise. No struggle. Just, gone. His keys lay spinning on the floor. I snatched them and ran through the dark, fumbling for the right one. Something slammed against the wall behind me. Once. Twice. Getting closer. Finally, the lock gave. I burst through the loading dock door into the freezing night air, lungs heaving, heart about to explode. I looked back just once. The door was open. Inside, something tall and hunched stood just beyond the threshold, watching me. And then it spoke. Not aloud, not with a voice, but inside my head. "You don't leave clean." I drove for hours after I left that Walmart. Didn't stop. Didn't eat. Barely blinked. I made it all the way to Ohio before I finally pulled into a gas station, hands shaking so bad I dropped my wallet twice. I looked in the mirror while I pumped gas. That's when I saw it. A mark. On my neck. Faint, like a freezer burn, 5 thin lines, curling around the base of my throat. The same shape as the handprint I saw on the freezer glass. I scrubbed it raw in the gas station bathroom. It wouldn't come off. The clerk behind the counter, an old woman with eyes that never blinked, looked at me and said, without prompting, "Once they label you, there's no receipt to take it back." I hadn't told her anything. I drove to a cheap motel and barricaded the door with a chair. Sat in bed with the lights on. Tried to stay awake. But sometime after 3 a.m., I blacked out. When I woke up, there was a Walmart vest hanging on the back of the door. Clean. Pressed. My name stitched into the chest, "Hi. I'm redacted. How can I help?" Below it, on the floor, was a new receipt. I didn't want to pick it up. But I did. Items: 1 human host, return to system, aisle, 19 status, restocking in progress. That night, I started seeing them in my dreams. The cold ones. Lurking between aisles that stretched for miles. I wasn't watching them anymore. They were watching me. Every store I went into after that, Target, gas stations, grocery stores, I'd hear the same soft intercom chime, followed by static. Once, at a Home Depot, I swear I heard the same voice from the freezer whisper, "Rollback complete." I tried to warn people. Nobody listens. And lately, I've been forgetting things. Names. Places. I looked up my hometown last week and, it's not on the map anymore. Like I was never there. Like it was discontinued. But you're hearing this now, right? So I'm still real. I'm still out here. Right? If you ever find yourself working late, closing shift, graveyard hours, stocking shelves under flickering lights, and you hear a freezer door open behind you, don't look. And whatever you do, never open anything labeled Stockroom 9.